It's Thursday the 6th of October. It's 8:45 p.m. and it's time for the Cat's Whiskers podcast, which, as it tends to be these days, is live. Good evening and welcome to the Cat's Whiskers podcast. It's Thursday evening, so that means it's time for our weekend preview show. And you will probably have already noticed that I am neither Jono Bullard or Aaron Lord. The boys have all deserted me. Jono's off washing his hair, Aaron's polishing his earring, Andy's practising his breathing exercises, and Paul is busy teaching a class on how to sing in the club style. So I've decided to find some new friends this evening. Those new friends come in the shape of Antoine Marie-Jeanne.
Hello, good evening.
And I've gone to such lengths as to go pilfering from another podcast, so welcome from the forecast, Paul Tracey.
Hello, good evening.
Right then, gentlemen. Obviously, Paul, as we sort of discussed before we came on here, you're under no obligation to talk about our Saturday game against Dundee, apart from the fact that they are your conference rivals, and we will have already seen them twice by the time this weekend is over, and you won't have seen them at all yet. So we'll sort of come on to that later on. But I just want to get into some Panthers news before we start that. Unless you've had your head under a rock, Panthers fans, for the last couple of days, you will already know that we have re-signed Peter Kalus, and so that signing has been sort of met as a sort of very Marmite signing. I think there's been an equal response from the fan base, I would think. Would you agree with that, Ant?
To be honest, because I've been under the weather for the last couple of days, I've not seen a lot. I know the reaction when it was announced that the quiz was overwhelmingly positive. I was lucky enough, if you call it that, to have Henry as our Panthers draft player, and he was saying he was quite influential in getting him over. Apparently, them two were pretty tight. So no, everybody seemed really, really positive, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not being at the quiz night myself. I mean, I'm sort of measuring the response that I saw on Twitter, and I saw an equal amount of, yeah, great, he's back, and as I did, not really bothered about that signing, or the sort of other opinions that have been floating around. What's your thoughts on the signing, Ant?
Schultz is going to be out for a while, so it's important to get a replacement in. When he was here last time, he was very good player points wise. I wasn't overly keen on him when he was here, if I'm being honest. He was a bit greedy for my liking, but then, to be fair, that wasn't the greatest Panthers team in the world. So I'm hoping with better players alongside him that, don't get me wrong, I don't expect him to be tracking back and defending all the time. But if he's popping goals in and assisting other players in popping goals in, then, it's going to replicate some of that points scoring that we've lost with Schultz being out. Yeah,
and I mean, we've obviously talked about Schultz sort of at length in terms of his injury, and the fact that, well, I mean, my regular tweet is, can we please stop breaking Stephen Schultz? It does seem to be that he's picking up a few here and there. As you've said, Schultz is reportedly out for a while, and you would assume that Kalus is coming in as injury cover. Last update that we had still has Steve Lee and David Clark on the injury list, and obviously replacing them is a much more mammoth task than replacing Schultz with them being Brits. What's your thoughts on the Lee and Clark injuries?
I'm really worried about Stevie Lee, if I'm honest. The rumours indicate that it's another concussion. How many concussions is this going to be now before you have to say, look, enough's enough, he can't play anymore? Losing Oakford at the same time, obviously through his teaching, has dropped us in it. And, you can't replicate a British scorer like you've got with David Clark. So we either need to splash the cash a bit and tap up a few players that are either at other clubs or in the EPL, or we have got potentially a very tricky period coming up.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, we've been banging on about it for season after season, how strong our Brit core is, and all of a sudden it's looking a little bit fragile. So I'll just sort of jump to something I was going to talk about later on. I'm going to bring you in, actually, Paul, because you guys have been experiencing a little bit of the old injury curse as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's excuse me. Yeah, that's right. In the last few weeks, we obviously had the news that before we travelled to Nottingham, that Adam Harding had fractured his foot and is likely to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. Typical blocking a shot in training, which is unfortunate. We were already missing Matt Bissonnette, who had started to gel very well with the line of Mario and, I'll get it out of the way now, Darian Dzinski, for all of those that can't say it correctly. So yeah, he'd been gelling well. And then in the game against Nottingham last week, away at Nottingham on the Saturday, Paul Phillips took a puck in the face in the third period. Although he did return to the game, he actually sat out the game against Sheffield at home on the Sunday. So again, on the Sunday, we were out with three players down. And we've already got, obviously, a short roster, a short bench. So it was tough for the guys. But of course, you've seen the results and they performed quite well, being the players that were down.
Yes, I just want to touch on netminding, Ant. So I'll bring you back in there. Obviously, Passel. Well, potato, however you want to pronounce it, I suppose.
Just call him Henry.
Just call him Henry. It's fine. Okay, yeah. So Henry, he got his first win down in Ice Arena, Wales, on Sunday, and he was obviously very visibly delighted with getting that win. With the performances that we've seen last weekend, do you think there is any doubt over who might get the start this weekend?
I haven't got a clue, if I'm honest. I think we discussed on a previous podcast about the points target that you need for the Challenge Cup. So I wouldn't be surprised if they split the weekend again and we see Mika in on Saturday and then Henry in Manchester on Sunday, to be honest.
Okay. Right, before I move on to some fans' thoughts that we got in shortly after the signing of Kalus, just want to make a quick plug for the Panthers yearbook launch, which is going to be happening after the Belfast game on Sunday, October the 16th. That'll be on sale for £11. So Panthers fans traditionally do attend that very well. Are you a buyer of the yearbook yourself, Ant?
Not personally, and I don't get the beefcake calendar either. Sorry.
Well, it'll be of no surprise to anybody that I will probably be in the queue for that one.
Yeah, well,
right. So,
there's been a few Storm fans asking recently if the Storm are going to produce a calendar. So that'll be interesting to see how well that goes down.
Well, I think you're onto a winner with your female fan base if you have the kind of beefcake shots in the calendar. So it's a bit. It can be a bit of a money spinner, I suppose. So if it's a business
sells out by all accounts. So.
Well, always does. I'm sure if there is a business opportunity there, I'm sure Mr. Russell will jump all over that.
I'm sure he will.
Just a few fans' thoughts on Kalus' signing that flew straight into us after it was announced. But Pause, Panthers mascot, sent a thought into us. Great signing and good to see the club acting fast on injuries. Knows the club and staff, so will settle quickly. And I think that's a good point, actually. He's been to the league before. He does know, sort of a core of the players. And and as you've already said, Ant, he's already good friends with Henry, so there's a bit of camaraderie there for when he gets here. Another thought from, and I'm really sorry if I pronounce this wrong, Deso Dark. Delighted and great to see us get injury covering so quickly. Again, the Panthers probably do have to be congratulated for that. Would you agree, Ant?
Yeah, it makes me wonder whether something was in the pipeline before, rather than just recently. Because obviously, you've already mentioned how many times Schultz has been out here. We've been clamouring for a while now, Panthers fans, for spare import anyway. So it does wonder. I do wonder how long it's been in the pipeline for. But it's brilliant that they've brought him in at this point, and I hope he hits the ground running. But I won't expect anything of him for the first couple of weeks, to be honest.
Yep, and finally, from Andy B, which is ACB_47 on Twitter, a good player in a year when we weren't that good. Always thought he was too skilled for those around him, so may fit in now. And I think you've already sort of made that point, really, Ant. So, that's obviously there's somebody there who would agree with you on that. So, right.
Great minds and all that.
Yeah, well... something like that. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so, because
Yep.
we want to keep the train moving, as it were. Right. So Saturday, Panthers will be taking on the Dundee Stars in the NIC. 7:00 face-off. Just a little bit of statting for you. Stars record so far: 5 wins, 4 losses, 30 goals for, 25 against. Panthers record: 7 wins, 3 losses, 36 goals for, 28 against, and that's obviously in all competitions. Now, we do have a winning record against the Stars at home. Another little bit of statting. I mean, I've got the last 9 results at home, and we are on 8 wins and 1 overtime loss. So that's quite a definitive record. Obviously, players change, coaches change. They've got Lefebvre behind the bench. He seems to be, getting them a few good wins this season. So should we be expecting more of the same in terms of our winning record, Ant, do you think?
I expect us to win on Saturday. I don't expect it to be easy, because Dundee have got a bloody good team out this year. And they've got Kel Tanaka, who as much as he's an annoying little scrote, I rated him from the moment he signed for Hull. And I know one of my mates, he always used to text in the Coventry thing to give him the man of the match, regardless of whether he was at the game or not. So, I expect it to be a real tight game. But on the flip side, I do expect us to win, maybe an empty netter to seal the deal.
Oh, you're expecting it to be that close, right?
Yes.
Okie dokie. The next question I can sort of bring Paul in as well for his thoughts. But and as I say, the odd thing is that we will have seen Dundee twice, and them being the Storm's conference rivals, you've not played them yet. But who do we think are the ones to watch on the Stars team? Paul, I'll bring you in first on that.
Oh gosh, the Stars did very well last year in terms of scoring goals. I think at one point in the top 10 of goal scorers, I think 4 of the top 10 were Stars players. I don't think it ended. The league finished with the same positions, but they were a very offensive team. They did a lot of business early in the summer, like Hans just said, bringing some well-known players within the league. Kel Tanaka. Of course, they've got Vinny Scarcella, which we know very well from last year, and of course, Neil Russell didn't hide the fact that he was one of the players that we really did our utmost to bring back, and he was disappointed that we couldn't reach that deal. I think certainly Kale, Vinny, Switzer, and then of course I don't know how the fans will take this, but if Joey Side scores the same way as he scored against Belfast just a couple of weeks ago, I think never mind players hunting for him on the ice, I think fans will be throwing things at him, won't they?
Well, it was quite a spectacular goal. I think we all thought, was it Rutherford was going to take all the plaudits for his goal, and then Sides just sort of takes it a step further, really. And I mean, sort of same question, really. I mean, I don't know if you did you go up to Dundee when we played them up there?
No, I bought the webcast.
Okay.
I enjoy it. It's a really good webcast, to be fair. Plug on that. Again, I can't get past Tanaka. There's something about him that whenever he's on the ice, something's going to happen. He creates space. Like I say, he's an annoying little so-and-so. Plus, they've got my favourite backup in Craig Holland. I like watching him skate around in warm-up.
I think, Tina, the one thing I would add is we've said they're a very offensive team, but the only thing that worries me, and of course, as you've said, we haven't seen them this year. As a Storm fan, we haven't seen them, but the only thing that worries me is whether their D is as strong as, obviously, as offensive as the team is, and whether their D can hold teams. I don't think scoring the goals is going to be the issue. I think it's more going to be the other end.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm you caught me on the hop a little bit there, because I was just sort of trying to remember, because I didn't get the webcast, unfortunately, when they were up there. I was in the middle of a field cooking burgers at the time. So, but yeah, the decor. I mean, yeah, they're conceding a few goals. So, the back door is kind of open if teams know how to exploit it, I suppose. Is there anybody in particular that you think that they're going to be looking to in terms of leading that decor and trying to tighten up?
Again, it's
Alan.
Go on. Sorry,
go Paul.
I was just going to say it's probably again with only having really one season under my belt. I've watched hockey for a long, long time, but of course I wasn't. I used to monitor the elite leagues sort of from a distance until the Storm came back. I mean, from last year they've brought they've brought 7 guys overall back that were in the roster last year. 2 of them were the D guys. One was Kevin Hart and Craig Moore, the Brit lad. The interesting one for me, and I've said this to the guys on our podcast and some of my friends at the rink, I'm interested to see, it's still very early, but I'm interested to see how Felix Anton Poulin turns out, if that's how you pronounce it. Why do they sign hockey players you can't pronounce? I'm interested to see how he plays, but again, Ant can probably give more. It's difficult for me to comment on any individuals at this moment.
Yeah, when they signed Fallon in the close season, I thought that was a hell of a signing for them netminder wise. So you'd expect him to step up, and I think he seems a solid enough goalie. Obviously, they've got Sescon, who I think was at Coventry previously.
Yes, and I believe he's been somewhere else in the Elite League.
Clan.
I want to say Brayhead. Yes.
Yeah,
Brayhead.
I've just checked Elite Prospects.
Yeah.
It's Clan.
it's the battle of who can check Elite Prospects of the fastest, isn't it? Really. Yes. He's been at Coventry, been at Brayhead. Yeah.
But I don't think they, like Paul's already mentioned, I don't think they're going to be sort of trying to grind out 1-0, 2-0 wins. I think they're going to be, hoping they can score more than the opposition, really.
If you score 5, we'll score 6.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Run and gun hockey.
Or if you score 5, we'll score 8. Or is that a bit too close?
No, that's there's always that option. I agree with Ant there. I mean, I listen to your podcast regularly. I listen to some of the others, and I'm looking forward myself to seeing Joe Fallon and seeing how his season turns out. He's certainly come over with a lot of hype, but just to back up what Ant said there, it's going to be difficult if everything's on his shoulders. He does need something in front of him at least, and I hope it doesn't get to that stage really, because I quite like Dundee. I've got a soft spot for Vinny Scarcella. Some of the other forwards that we mentioned, there's some good players there, and even though they're a rival, they're one of the teams I prefer to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you do sort of say Fallon. I mean, I'm just having a quick look at sort of the kind of shots on goal he's looking at the moment. I mean, he's had a couple of games of 41, 43 shots on goal, 34. The pucks are certainly getting through to him, and they are pulling out a few wins. So that it sounds like they've found a good guy at the back there. Right, okay, so we shall move on to Sunday's game, and that will be at the Storm Shelter over in Altrincham, and it's a Challenge Cup game against the Manchester Storm for the Panthers. Storm record so far, 3 wins, 5 losses, 27 goals for, 29 against, probably not helped by last Saturday's game.
I don't think anything was helped before last Saturday. Until last Saturday.
Yes, it was certainly an interesting one to watch. I mean, especially for a newbie like me, you get a lot of people sort of talking about old time hockey, and I think I experienced it, or as close as I'm ever going to experience it on Saturday night. So I have the Storm to thank for that at the very least. Let's have a chat about last Saturday's game before we sort of move on to this Sunday. From your perspective, Paul, just give us a bit of an overview from the perspective of a Storm fan.
There was a lot of Storm and Panthers fans saying it was a great game of hockey. It was one of the best hockey games they've watched. I don't know. I was a bit mixed. Yes, it was certainly a great advert for the game, and there was certainly plenty of goals. It was spoilt for my liking for individual mistakes. I mean, from a Storm fan, we're always going to be biased with our teams. I think we're a fantastic 5-on-5 team. And up until Saturday, we've had our special teams have been good. We've been scoring power play goals. We've been getting short-handed goals, and our penalty kill has been fantastic. In fact, where's my stats? We'd let one goal in, which was very early in our first competitive game against Sheffield in the Challenge Cup. So to turn up on Saturday and then come away with what was a huge scoreline and certainly from my point of view, quite frustrated because I know we're better than the end result. I was personally disappointed, although, you can't take anything away from the Nottingham team. They took their chances. I think Chris Lawrence I've only seen Chris Lawrence obviously a fair few times last season, even on webcasts with other teams. But he certainly had a very, very good game on Saturday. But, our discipline went against us. The start of the second period, we had a double minor. It was basically at the end of the first period, so it pretty much gave you a 4-minute power play, I should say, at the beginning of the second period, and it was a 5-on-3, and it because we had two penalties. We had Patrick Valkak and Darian Dzinski, and you just pulled us apart with the way you circled, you rotated the puck, your movement. And you went 2 goals up. We did very well to come back into it to bring the game back to a 1-goal difference. And I'm sure from your side as well, you'll see things within the game that you didn't like, and the Panthers giving soft goals away. Yeah, it was great. I like going to Nottingham. I like watching the games there. I was personally just disappointed that we didn't give a better account of ourselves, because I think as a 5-on-5 hockey team, we're going to hopefully open a few people's eyes this year.
And anything to add to that at all?
No, I think Paul's covered it nicely. I think that they, at one point, it was just like Panthers would score and then Manchester would reply straight away. And it's just like, for God's sake, what do you have to do to put them away? So that they're starting to get on my nerves now. Just lie down and let us win, please. I can't take this. But
let us win.
It was a good atmosphere in the rink, which is always a bonus. I was curious afterwards, though, and I know you're going to come on to talk about this, Tina, but some of the reactions from the Storm fans and players about the referee's performance. Now, I didn't think the referee did that bad of a job. I thought there's things he missed, but equally there was things that he called that were a bit soft, but that balanced it out for both teams, I thought. But I'd just be interested to get your thoughts, Paul, on the referee.
Yeah, well, I'm the wrong person to ask, because we had 2 games last week of queries with the officials, as I'm sure you know. I must admit with you, there were things that were missed. There was one particular one that stuck out for me. There was an icing that was blown, and we were ahead of we were chasing the puck down, and we were clearly going to get there. And
I remember that one actually, because I said to the guys around me, I said, I don't understand. we were all scratching our heads. So yeah, I remember that. I remember that one as well. I think I know which one you're talking about. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, and like Ant said, I didn't feel that the game was officiated that badly. I did see the comments. I've seen the same comments that I think we're going to go on to talk about. And, everybody watches the game differently. Without digressing too far, I actually took my family to Nottingham, and I had my 5-year-old with me who enjoys the games. And, of course, being 5, tells me he wants to go to the toilet at the wrong times. So, maybe it's one of those games where I wasn't there, stood around with my mates, so you're concentrating 100%. Again, from my opinion, Sunday's officiating was a lot different than Saturday's, and so I don't really have much more to comment on Saturday's game.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So as you've sort of alluded to, guys, just want to touch on a particular point. I mean, shortly after the game, your GM Paul, the owner of the team, Mark Johnson, he tweeted a sort of a conversation, a text that he'd received from Neil Russell, questioning the referee's performance, basically. Now, there's sort of 2 things to come out of that, because I think we know in the past that people have been fined for making sort of comments like that over social
Sure.
media. But I mean, I think we probably know the answer to this. I mean, what if he did quantify it afterwards? By sort of saying that he didn't. He wasn't necessarily saying that it was, worse for one team or another. It wasn't the referee lost the Storm the game. It was just the referee had a bad game.
Sure.
Was he right? Was he right to hear that particular conversation? Because for me personally, that's a conversation that should have stayed between Mark and Neil.
Yeah, it was an interesting one because I'm not gonna say I know Mark very well, but I remember Mark as a player. Yes, I'm that old, and if Mark listens to this, I'm sure he'll remind me of that when he next sees me. I say hello to Mark in the rink. I do know him, and I always sort of pass him my regards. He's not normally like that. I mean, Mark, if you follow his Twitter feed, or again, if you remember him as a player, and certainly look at what he's done in the last 12 months, along with Neil Russell in Altrincham, Mark is so pro-hockey. Mark wants everything done right, and whether that's from what's going on currently within the junior teams and the way, the pro players, the Storm guys help the juniors out. And I'm sorry for digressing there, but just to give you a bit of an insight into how he, in my opinion, how he wants everything to be right. Tina's, you've alluded to there how I think it was a Panthers fan that replied to Mark's tweet and said, I think the comment was, sounds like sour grapes. And there was no, the tweets didn't go anything funny about it. But Mark's response was, it was bad officiating, and he didn't quote a team. Now, there's only really Mark can answer that. I appreciate Mark also did comment that he'd had a text from his GM, which of course is Neil. So again, difficult, I suppose, for any of us to quantify what's going on in Neil's stroke Mark's minds. But again, there was, maybe I'll take it a step further, there was also a tweet from Mark about the officiating on Sunday, the home game we had against Sheffield, which of course had quite a questionable end. But just so you guys know, we had a young referee who's new to the league, who, again, some of his calls were fine, but through all the penalties, I didn't count up how many penalties we had. I've got them in front of me here, but overall there was 8 fighting penalties given out. And through listening to Pasha's post-game comments and chatting amongst your hockey pals, I think we had one for each team down as justified for fighting. The rest were 2 minutes for roughing. So I think we as a team, we had a bit of an interesting weekend when it comes to officiating. But going back to your original question, it's not like Mark, and Mark is more, in my opinion, Mark's more professional, normally more professional, and may still be more professional if he had his right to say why he tweeted in that way.
Okay, so we'll leave that one where it is, and we'll sort of jump ahead a little bit. So you've had a hard couple of. I'll stay with you actually, Paul.
Sure.
You've had a hard weekend, really. We've had this crazy game at the arena. You've had what everybody sort of says is a controversial decision go against you on your home rink on the Sunday. Can you bounce back from that?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. If Claire was on this call with us, Claire from the forecast, she would laugh because I'm always positive. But no, you guys heard on your own podcast when Aaron interviewed Neil Russell last week. We've got the guys, the squad and the roster we've got this year. They're a cracking bunch of guys. I spoke to a few of them after the game on Sunday. Nobody seems down. It's basically, that's the result, let's move on. It's always about the next game. So I don't feel that there'll be any worries about how we're going to perform as a team this weekend. Of course, we're away to Fife on Saturday and of course home to you guys on Sunday. So again, 2 tough games. Well, all games are tough, aren't they, as they all say. But I think they'll be strong. They'll come back. Let's hope the discipline is obviously a little bit better than it was certainly over the last weekend. And let's hope some of the, again, in my opinion, some of the sloppy defensive plays that gave you guys a few goals, let's hope that things get tightened up a little bit, because we're we're a better team than some of the goals we gave away last weekend. And like I said before, as a 5-on-5 hockey team, we're good. We are good coming forward.
Ant, I'm going to come back over to you because you've had a bit of a break there. Now that we've had this ridiculous game against the Storm on Sunday, last Saturday. This Sunday, who do you think are the ones to watch from the Storm?
Let's see. Omar Pacha always seems to play well when you see him. I'll be interested to see if there's Nielsen McGrath in round 2. So see if there's any sort of carryover from last Saturday. I tell you what, though, the one player that did stand out for me on their forward line was Jack Prince last week. I thought he had a very, very good game, and it looks like Manchester have got a hell of a British. I assume he's classed as a British player, isn't he?
Yes, he did do his junior time through the British system.
So yeah, he sounds. I mean, I've never got a chance to see him before when he was highly touted and obviously made a couple of GB squads, but I don't think he ever ended up playing due to injuries and what have you. But no, for me, he had a really good game last week, and he was the one that stood out, apart from Nielsen's hair.
I think Nielsen's hair stood out to a lot of people. Paul, I'm going to switch this back over to you because I know you guys have been talking about this on the forecast. Goal line technology, heavily touted, still has yet to appear. But you've highlighted that there are cameras in the Storm shelter. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. Some of you may have listened already to the Forecast Manchester Storms podcast that Plug It Now came out this morning. Unfortunately, I couldn't meet the guys. They actually recorded at the rink yesterday evening, and I couldn't meet them. But yeah, some of us are aware that these cameras have certainly been installed at our rink, and of course a number around the league. I think they're still waiting for a few, which is more, I think, the arenas because of. Again, I digress, but from what I believe, it's third-party ownership buildings that are obviously used for many, many different things. And, of course, they want these cameras that they're able to move or then reset so they're in the right position. So there's a lot of wireless going on rather than being hardwired in. Of course, that doesn't affect us in a building that's predominantly, that's pretty much used as an ice rink all year round. Although there is a wrestling event there this Saturday. I won't be going to that, by the way. But, yes, Claire spoke to John Jones, who I'm sure some of you guys know is a Cardiff Devils fan, and it's his company that have been working with the Elite League to install these cameras. My own opinion, after I've seen the cameras at the rink and of course the short video that Claire posted, I'm a little bit concerned that there won't be conclusive. Now, what I mean by that is, we're all NHL fans, and we know that the multi-million pound sport that is the NHL in these huge arenas, there's not only a camera set up behind the goal, but there's also a camera above the goal, either set into the goal itself or certainly looking down, which when you get those really close plays, will show you whether the puck is 100% showing over the line. Now, the incident we had on Sunday was also captured by many fans on on smartphones, and then of course posted to social media. I'm sure you guys saw some of the videos, saw some of the still shots. God, that's like a tongue twister. Saw some of the shots, and from different angles. There was the part of the ice was showing, and then from another angle it looked like the puck was on the line. And I would be concerned that if the camera is going to be in the position that it's in, then if that puck is still just touching that line, if the puck's come across the line towards the inside of the goal and towards the camera, but the back part of the puck is still on the line, I'm not convinced that camera from the angle will actually capture the ice surrounding the puck or give you that conclusive, yes, it's across the line. So I'm proven wrong. I haven't spoken to Claire in person. I don't know whether she's had the opportunity to speak to Neil Russell about it. Neil is involved with everything, as you know, and I'm pretty confident that if Neil knows the game better than most of us, so if I've got those concerns, I'm damn sure the likes of Neil Russell and AN other around the league, I should say, have also got those questions and those concerns. So the sooner it comes in, the better, in my opinion. And then I hope that when the first incident arises, whichever team it's with, I hope the goal line technology does the job that we all see it successfully does in the NHL.
Ant, anything to add to that?
Not a lot, really, but anything's an improvement on what we've got now, surely. I mean, we've already had several incidents this season where has it gone in, has it not gone in, and another camera angle isn't going to hurt.
No, absolutely not. I would definitely agree. You know, as Paul says, we're all NHL fans, and you know, we sort of switch on the game centres and Premier Sports, and you know, you get the multi angles, and when there's a controversial puck, you know, they go to Toronto, and you know, they're showing 12 different camera angles just to see if a puck crossed over the goal line. It's a bit of a bump back down to earth when we get none of that, really.
Tina, can I just add something to that? Because
certainly.
Simon Harris, one of my colleagues who obviously participates, obviously gives good quality feedback on our podcast. Simon made a very good point whilst this conversation about goal line technology was going on. We all know what happens in America, like you've just alluded to there. You know, it's all fed back to Toronto, and the refs get on the phone, get on the headphones, and you know, they get a bit of support. Now, in the Elite League, hypothetically, the incident that happened on Sunday happens again. The referee was right on the spot. He washes that out. It goes to review. The referee goes and reviews it. So the point that Simon was making, and it's a valid point, and I don't know whether this is the case. I'm hoping it isn't, and I'm there to be told different. That referee has got to go and review. Now he is the senior official on the match night. Who else is going to review it with him? Does he then bring his linesman in? Because on Sunday, the referee didn't confront or didn't ask for the linesman or the goal judge's opinion. So are we back to square one, or am I just starting a debate for yet another time? Are we back to the referee's washed that goal out, so he goes and reviews and he thinks, no, you know, I'm washing it out again, or do we have other people around that the jury's there and he can't be proven wrong because there's other officials there? It's going to be interesting to see how it's going to work.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me personally, I would say that's got to have its own set of rules once it's brought in, and I think that's an interesting question. And you're probably right; it's a question for another time. And you know, if only there were a show or a podcast you could submit a question like that to. Oh. Maybe you could submit it to the Ask TCW podcast next Wednesday. Just a thought for you there, Paul. Just a thought.
I'll jot that one down.
Right. Okay. So if you let's just get on to a few bits of business around the Elite League before we wrap up for the evening. So the first bit of business: Levi Nelson out for the Steelers with a broken wrist, blocking a shot against Braehead. So it seems that even our nearest and dearest up the road are not immune to the old injury curse. I think they're going to miss him a little bit. Would you agree, Ant?
Good player, but if it weakens them, I'm all for it.
Well, I'm sure with the old War of the Roses going on, you're probably not going to disagree with that too much either, Paul.
No, not at all. No, he's a good player. Obviously, well, he scored a game-winning goal against us last year, so yeah, I've no love for him at all.
No, I'm not surprised. Yes, and moving on, Bray Clan today have announced that they've signed 26-year-old Canadian forward Mike Hammond. Played last season in the East Coast Hockey League for Cincinnati Cyclones and Brampton Beast. I think I read a bit of the press on it today. They've moved Rosehill back to the defence, so this is a move to strengthen their forward core. Good signing, do you think there, Paul?
Yeah, again, I don't know much about him. I listened to the guys on the Purple Army podcast, and that they said pretty much what you've said there from the PR that's come out today, that they were hoping the club would move Rosehill back to the forward position, although from what I believe he's been doing very well in defence. I've seen him obviously play against the Storm in D. So yeah, I'm sure moving Rosehill back, because they all say he can play, they all say he can do a job. So the more offensive players they've got playing in the right positions, the better for them.
Ant, anything to add to that?
Well, they need a spark, don't they, Brayad? So let's see if Hammond gives it him, because I fear for Affinity's job at the moment, to be honest.
Well, that's interesting. You're not the only person to have said that on this podcast this week, I think. Just a final word, I think. We have 2 fundraising appeals occurring in the Elite League at the moment. 2 very prominent ones, at the very least. Adam Calder, the former Blaze player, the targeted £10,000 for his specialist cancer treatment. I believe that's already been surpassed even before the game has gone ahead for him. So that that's a wonderful. Wonderful effort by the Blaze and and all the rest of the Elite League crowd and anybody else who's donated. There is still a Just Giving site going on, so if anybody wants to donate to help out with that cause, I believe it's justgiving.com/crowdfunding/Adam Calder. Also, support continuing for the Matchka fundraising game for former Devil Scott Matchka, who's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease, or ALS as it's known, over in North America, and there is a game at Ice Arena Wales on October the 25th against the I believe it's the 2010-2011 Cardiff Devils, and that's a 7 p.m. face-off. So if you are anywhere near, or it's at all feasible for you to get down there, then probably it's going to be a good game. So you will get a good night's entertainment, and it's all for a good cause. So well done, hockey family. We are very good at coming together for anybody who is in need, really, who needs a bit of support. So all that's left for me to say is just to sort of wrap up. Paul, before we push off, do you want to just give a quick last plug for the forecast?
Yeah, no, if you wouldn't mind, because I'm sure I'll be in a lot of trouble from the lady we both know well. Yes, the Manchester Storm podcast is the forecast, where you can find us on Twitter, which the Twitter address is @theforecastmcr. We're on Facebook, which is easy enough to find. And of course, the podcast is available through iTunes and SoundCloud or Audio Boom. Those 2 always confuse me. But just one last thing, if I could add, we try on the podcast, we try and do a bit of interaction with the fans. And in the last couple of weeks, we've been running what we've classed as our EIHL predictions. And it has been quite simple. What it is, we've printed off a load of sheets, and we've even posted it on Facebook for people to print their own. We've asked our fans to put their predictions for the final league positions at the end of the season from 1 to 10. We've asked them to name who's going to win each of the conferences, who's going to win the Challenge Cup, and for our team, who's going to finish as the Manchester Storm leading point scorer. So I was going to suggest, knowing you guys well, we've met a number of times now, and we always find time to chat. If any of you are coming up to the game on Sunday, go to our Facebook page, print one of these off, fill it in, and then rather than putting who's going to finish as the top of the Manchester Storm point scorer, you put in there the leading point scorer for Nottingham Panthers, and we'll adopt the same point scoring at the end of the season, and I'm sure we can have a bit of banter with you as and when the time comes.
Wonderful. Sounds like a challenge. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to get up there on Sunday, so I will try and find the time to print it off and send it up with one of the boys. So yes, I will pass the challenge on to the rest of them if they so wish to participate. Right. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much to Paul Tracey.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me on.
Absolute pleasure, mate. And thank you very much to Antoine Marie-Jeanne.
No problem. Good evening. Good night, everybody, should I say.
And thank you very much to you for listening to the Cat's Whiskers podcast.